asks what's coming up at 3 p.m. today, CC, which is the NBA trade deadline. Should what happened last night have any impact on that deadline whatsoever?
No, not unless LeBron's going to go to him and waive his no trade and they get a bunch of picks and some other players for him. No, I don't think it's going to change anything. I think that the Cavs they're limited in the amount of changes they can make because they're not going to offer the Brooklyn pick. When they decide not to offer the Brooklyn pick, there's not a lot of teams that are going to do business with the Cavs. Not because they don't like their other pick, but because they know that they have better. They know that the Cavs are strapped and that they have to make some type of move. So they're going to try to get the best pick out of them. So I don't believe there's a whole bunch that the Cavs can do. Lou Williams signs a contract extension with the Clippers. So I believe that limits their options. I believe he was the best player. They can get an off guard who could score the basketball or get someone else who can play some defense. Avery Bradley potentially, but no, I don't believe this changes anything. I hope it changes the overall psyche of the Cavs,
sure,
which is more important than what's going to happen at the trade deadline.
If they right now or going into last night were insistent, we are not trading the Brooklyn pick, then yes, last night was a good reminder as to how ridiculous of a strategy that is. Because last night was a reminder, oh yeah, right now, this moment, we have the guy who's head and shoulders the best basketball player in the world. Guy who hit a game-tying three at the tail end of regulation, hit a game-tying layup at the tail end of overtime, followed that up with a game-saving block, and then a game-winning jump shot. That's what LeBron did yesterday. And right now, that Brooklyn pick, that coveted Brooklyn pick, that you can't even consider getting rid of in order to help your team potentially win a title this year, that Brooklyn pick has an 85% chance, as we sit here today, to be 7, 8, or 9 in the draft. A 15% chance to be in the top 3. If they finish with the 7th best record, 7th worst record in basketball, which is where they're at now, that's what it'll be. So a little history lesson for Dan Gilbert, who I know has been a GM for all of 15 minutes now, so maybe he's not familiar with it. Here are the types of players you can draft at 7, 8, 9. Ben McLemore, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Trey Burke. Is that your escape route when LeBron leaves? How about the next year? How about Julius Randle, Nick Stauskas, or Noah Vonleh? Which one of those guys are you holding on to for when LeBron leaves? What about the year after that? How about Willie Cauley-Stein, Emmanuel Mudiay, or Stanley Johnson? Any of those guys, your team's saviors? The idea that this Brooklyn pick is this Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory golden ticket that you just can't get rid of, your only objective should be to try to entice LeBron to stay by winning a title this year. To have an escape plan from that is to say my handmade parachute from 30,000 feet is my escape plan from this plane. It makes no sense. So last night was a good reminder of what they have right now and what they potentially could lose.
First of all, speaking of last night, Cece, what did they do differently? Why did last night look differently than the previous, I don't know, 20 games that they've played, that they haven't been able to get back on track?
No, last night didn't look different. Last night, only part of the game looked different. That's offensively. They put the ball in the bucket. It's defensively, look at the stat sheet. They give up the number of points they give up. Their possessions, they have some awful possessions. Sometime on defense, they don't help. LeBron got the block at the end. Yeah, they were helping, but they're not connected together. People talking about when you play great defense, they say it's as if all players are on one string. Man, if the string that the Cavs are on defensively is a yo-yo. It's up, it's down, it's up. Like you can't depend on that. So also you see that he's very, very limited offensively. He's a detriment defensively. So they're still the same thing. Kyle Korver hit shots. LeBron kind of took over the game in the way LeBron only can, but it was about hitting shots, and Kyle Korver was able to give him the support that he needed.
I'm going to disagree slightly. I think there's one thing that we have to, going into last night's game, we should have done a better job acknowledging, which is where this team's really been awful is on the road. Last 26 games, right? 1-11 on the road, and going into last night, 9-4 at home. So they had been pretty good at home already, and last night was at home. But the other thing they did differently last night is they didn't force IT into the lineup. Jetty Osman was getting fourth quarter minutes. As you could see last night, because that was a game they needed and a game they could win against a good basketball team that was at full strength. That Timberwolves team is a good team, was a favorite in Cleveland last night. And they did what they would do in a playoff game, I think.
From a coaching standpoint, at the end of the game, they went offense, defense. They had Osman come in on defense. They had IT playing on the offensive end. So they exchanged possession. They exchanged the rotation that way more so than they had before.
And the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, IT did not play. LeBron James played the entirety of fourth quarter and overtime. So there were some, and you saw at the beginning of the fourth quarter, they did some things that they were doing when they won 18 of 19. LeBron and a bunch of role players. It was LeBron, Jeff Green, Channing Frye, Jetty Osman, and Kyle Korver. LeBron and some shooters. So that was a little different as opposed to trying to get LeBron and IT as many minutes together as possible on the same page. Because IT, once again, was awful on both ends of the court. IT hit a couple shots yesterday to raise his three-point percentage from 23% now up to, I think, 26%. So that's step in the right direction. But it was, I agree with you, CC, the defense didn't look a lot different, but some of the things Ty Lue did, after, by the way, IT criticized Ty Lue the day before, they did, to me, look a little different. After the game, they said Jetty Osman is going to play more, if for no other reason than he is a guy who is engaged defensively when the entire team seems to be disengaged.
Yeah, and he gives them more size.
Right.
I mean, he's more athletic
yeah,
and he has more size.
Did LeBron look more engaged last night than he had in weeks prior?
Of course.
Why? Does it have anything to do with the trade deadline coming up? Is there any connection there whatsoever? Why turn it on last night when...
No, I mean, he didn't turn it on. They did make some adjustments. Guys made shots, though. So LeBron is a momentum player, too. He will make the best basketball play, but if he does three-quarters of the things right and he throws the ball to an open guy and they miss shots, it's hard for him to continue to be optimistic when guys don't make shots, when guys don't play good team defense. So I wouldn't say that his overall attitude changed. He realized where this team was. He had already lost to Orlando the night before, as Nick said, to the worst team in the NBA. They couldn't afford to lose this game after playing fairly well throughout the game. Now, defensively, you still don't want to give up that many points, but they were getting offensively. Their offense was flowing. So I wouldn't say that he just turned it on. It was kind of he benefited from guys hitting shots.
Right.
Guys don't hit shots. Like LeBron can only do so much. It's not as if he wasn't engaged. When it became the critical times, LeBron did what he had to do. He made more of the selfish plays when he had to. And that was, he had to shoot the three in regulation. He had to finish at the hole. He couldn't settle for a pull-up in overtime. And coming over in the help defense, he felt like when they switched that Jimmy Butler was going to take Osman one-on-one. So he read that, made the great block, JR rebounds it, calls the timeout, and he makes the big shot at the end.
And so again, to bring it back to where we started before we move on, you know, should this change what the Cavs do at the deadline? If the Cavs' plan going into last night, or as we sit here this morning, is to stand pat at the deadline, then I just want to make sure everyone understands. The Cavs, part of their plan, if their plan is to stand pat, they know they're losing LeBron James. They know they're losing. Forget if you agree with me, he's the best player ever. One of the 3 best players ever. We can walk one of the 5 best players ever. The best player in the history of your franchise, who, by the way, last night joined Kevin Garnett and Michael Jordan as the only players ever to lead a franchise all time in points, rebounds, and assists. If you stand pat at this deadline, he is walking out the door in a few months.
And by stand pat, do you mean anything shy of that Nets pick or IT or Kevin Love?
If they don't make a significant trade, the clock is ticking on your time with LeBron James. That is a guarantee. That's the decision up to Dan Gilbert. I'm very curious to see the one he makes in the next few hours.
All right. We will have...
He's not going to trade.